who's really praised everything that's been going on. I am overwhelmed. I also want to thank my lovely girlfriend, the lovely Julia, who has been my stalwart at my side, looking at all the videos I put out to make sure that I don't say something I shouldn't say, and to keep the channel within the terms and conditions of YouTube. However, this is no time to be complacent. Just because we've reached one little landmark, we must continue. But the channel started, started in 2005, 2008, something like that, when I was just putting up personal stuff. And then about 5.5 years ago, I was interested in England and Englishness and looking at the landscape, the heritage and nature. And it was about that time I met the lovely Julia, and she became very much involved. We now have a sister channel called The English Couple, which the link's in the description, so do check that out. Last year, I started to question what was going on in the world. We'd had the pandemic, and we had this, what they kept saying was the new normal. And I kept thinking, oh, well, I don't want a new normal, thanks very much. I want the old normal, quite happy with the old way of life. I don't want anything else. We got through this blooming pandemic, let's carry on. But no, a lot of things were going on, and a lot of things were being questioned. And I happened to watch an episode of GB News in which Neil Oliver was talking about the energy crisis. And he was saying in this episode, what would happen if we didn't pay? You see, what was going on is the energy costs had gone up, but the energy firms were making huge profits, and it didn't seem right. So he was saying, well, maybe we should teach them a lesson. What if none of us paid? And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's right. Maybe we should. So I made a quick video where I sat in this chair and I said, is Neil Oliver right? Well, it seemed that that video suddenly, for me, went viral. And I realised that people were very interested in what was going on. So I thought to myself, do you know, if this goes really far, I must get in touch with Neil Oliver and thank him. And I have actually been in touch with Neil Oliver. I've had a fantastic conversation with him. And in principle, we both agreed to do a show where we appear together. So I just need to pin him down on that. But I continued making these videos in which I was questioning what seemed to baffle me about the various things that would happen. Now, I'd noticed that things weren't right for some time, but I'd been a bit nervous about saying these things. And thanks to you watching this, I've not been quite so nervous, and I've put my head over the parapet and voiced my opinions. Now, not everybody agrees with me, and that's perfectly right and proper, but quite a lot of you have. But I'm here to say that in this sort of, what would you call it, a resume of where we are, if you like, a sort of thinking, right, okay, we've reached this, what has happened? And to me, two principles seem to be at stake here. Number one, which I've been talking about a bit, is the fear that's been coming out, both of mainstream media and alternative video platforms like YouTube, Rumble and others. You see, mainstream media seem to be selling this notion that everything is coming down is awful. And then you go, okay, that's fine, I'll go and have a look elsewhere to sort of verify it on social media and what have you. And then that almost is even more awful, more scary, and the whole thing about that is fear. And the one thing I don't want to be doing myself is the work of the globalists who are there to frighten you, because fear is such a brilliant control mechanism. If you're frightened of something, you're going to look for the benevolent person that has all the answers, which of course is, in this day and age, the government. They've sort of somehow appointed themselves as the arbiter of what we should be doing. Now remember, of course, the government is there to serve us. They have civil servants, don't they? Civil servants. It's in the name. They serve us, although they seem to have turned it round on their head, where they seem to think that they are the masters. We pay the taxes, we pay their wages, they are servants. But what about those in Parliament? Yes, have you thought about the words in Parliament? Well, that's interesting, because Parliament is a French word, and it's made up of two bits, parler and ment. Parler, of course, is to talk, but ment means, in French, lying. Bet you didn't know that. Parliament is they talk lies. That's what it means. And we know that's true. Now, in my thought, that's why these so-called honourable gentlemen, who on the whole mostly don't seem to be terribly honourable, maybe that's a lie too, but they can't say about another person that they're lying. And I think that's because the Parliament's set up to say that we are already lying. So if you say I'm lying, it means I'm telling the truth. It's kind of like a double negative. But anyway, I'll leave that there. So we know that they lie because they've been telling us so many lies for many, many years. Everything is a lie. And that's the second thing that I wanted to mention. So we've got fear being used, but they also lie. They lie about everything. The energy crisis that I mentioned before, that seems to be a completely man-made hocus-pocus load of old rubbish. That is a lie. There's no reason why we should have an energy crisis. It's all predicated, of course, on the fact that there's this thing called global warming, another bunch of rubbish, which is a lie. There may be some warming, and we may get 1 to 2 degrees of warming over the next 100 years, but it's a lie to say that we're all going to be underwater or burning up in 12 years. That in itself is a lie. The pandemic we went through, where we were told there was this terrible virus that was going to affect all of us, and it was ramped up that in the end we couldn't use anything else other than this magic miracle cure. Well, that turned out to be a lie, didn't it? Because we were told it was going to be amazingly effective. But of course, even Pfizer themselves admitted they'd never tested it to see if it would pass on, even though we were told we had to have mandated passports, because we needed to make sure people weren't going to be affected if we were affected. So it turned out to be a lie. We're told that it's safe and effective, yet there are so many harms from it that it's absolutely ridiculous. One reason the government can't talk about it, because they're Parliament, they talk lies, they can't tell the truth, that actually there are these excess deaths from this medical intervention. That was a great big lie. But it goes more than this. You'll notice I don't talk about the Ukraine and the Russian war. Well, I've never been convinced that the mainstream media have been straight with us from the start, or indeed that the government have been straight with us, because to me, the way the story has gone out, I think, is a complete and utter lie. It's another lie. Everything is a lie. Take, for example, the court system. That's a lie. You see, we think that we are all under the jurisdiction of these statutes and these rules, but it's actually a lie, because we're actually under the common law constitution. We are under God's law, natural law, not the legalese law. There's 12 presumptions, and unless you rebut them, you end up within their legal fiction. I'll talk about that in another video. That is a lie. Money and banking, that's another lie. Complete load of hocus pocus. Look, in my wallet, luckily, I have something that's called money. It's a £10 note. Well, it's a note with numbers on it. It's a piece of paper, effectively, and it has very tiny words on there that says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand £10. £10 of what? What exactly is this £10? Where do I take this to get my £10? What are they going to give me? Gold? Silver? Mouldy old potatoes? What does it mean? It actually means nothing. Money is a complete load of nonsense. It's a lie. We'll come back to that in another video as well. The food that we eat. Think about the food. We've been told that, of course, thanks to global warming, we may now have to shut the farmers down because meat is bad. That's another lie. And that we're going to end up having to have things like insects and bugs as part of our diet. Well, we don't need to do that. That, again, another lie. When you go into the supermarket and you see all these wonderful bright packages of all this wonderful and good quality food that we're told, processed food that's supposed to be good for our health, and yet people have never been iller than ever before. You see, that is a lie. The food that we eat, the best bit of the food is the bit you go into the supermarket where it actually has vegetables. But is that as healthy as you think? Well, it's industrially made and it's covered in pesticides, insecticides and herbicides. Who knows what's on that? They say it's all very healthy, but it's a lie. It may not be as healthy as we are imagining. So everything that we know that comes down from authority is, I'm telling you, it's a lie. We may well find that, now here's the thing in the news that I read, somebody sent me, and thank you for that. that they're going to be testing a nuclear strike. Not a real one, but they want to send everybody in the country a text message to say there's going to be an imminent strike. I don't know how true that is. I can't verify that. It was in a newspaper article online that somebody sent me. But the idea that they would send you a text message so that you would go, oh, and then they would say, don't worry, this is just a test. Why would you do that? To make you scared. It's back to the fear again, the fear factor, because they want to control you. And it's another lie. Everything is a lie. And I mentioned the other day, I think next will be that there are UFOs coming. UFOs, it's not some sort of other third country sending these weird things in space, it's USOs. I know there are things like Project Bluebeam where they can use, not hallucinations, the other thing with a 3D, yeah. Well, I can't remember what it's called. And they shove it into the space and you believe what you see. And the reason they want you to do that, again, is to turn to that benevolent government, the authority, to look after you. But it'll be another complete and utter lie. So you've got to be wary. Our work here on this channel and other channels is to try and wake people up from all these dreadful lies, fear and lies, where we can take back that responsibility for ourselves and we can say, no, I'm not having it anymore. We are our own sovereign people. We don't want our treaties and our health and all of this sent out to other places like the WHO. We will take back responsibility. We can see through the lies and we're okay. And in my channel, I want to offer hope. I want to offer not the lies, not the fear, but something positive and rewarding. And so now we've reached 100,000 subscribers, and by the way, that's not a lie, that is really true. I want to thank you so much for your support and all the love and affection and all the kind comments and all of that. And I hope that we can continue this work to see through the nonsense and the rubbish that is being put down on us and give us all hope for the future. Thank you. Those are purely my opinion, and you may have a different opinion, and I absolutely respect that. I'm very grateful to the lovely viewers who have recently written to their MPs about a number of things, and they've shared their concerns with their MP, and then the responses they've sent to me as well, so I get a chance to see what the MP has said, and it's been very enlightening. I did think that I could do a video in which I just read out all the responses, but pretty much the responses are all the same. For example, a number of people have written to their MPs and they've shared the responses with me about the vaccine. They've been concerned, just in the same way that Andrew Bridgen was concerned, with the fact that there have been some harms as a result of this one-size-fits-all medical procedure that's been injected into the arms of people, and some people have had some very terrible effects. And it's not just stopped. Some people have had those effects immediately, and some people have had them some time later, depending on whether they've had boosters or additional medical interventions as well. And the thing is, when people have been worried and they've gone to their MPs and they've said, do you know what, dear MP, you there working for us in our constituency, making sure that our voices are heard back at the government headquarters, we've been slightly worried that there are these problems with this medical intervention, and I've heard or experienced, or it's happened to a friend of mine or a relation of mine or somebody down the road who's had some problem with this thing, and we're not quite sure that it should be rolled out ever again, or it should be stopped, or should be prevented, or there should be some compensation, or there should be at least some measure going back to the government to let them know that it's been a complete and utter cock-up and that people have been harmed. And so they've said that to their MP in not necessarily those words, but very similar, and the MP has come back almost as if it was a special templated letter to say, well, I'm afraid to say that we're very much in favour of these medical procedures because they are tested, they've gone through some stringent testing, and they've been sorted all out in the right proper way, and that they're safe and effective and all the rest of it, despite the fact that it is still an experimental situation with a novel way of approaching it with the mRNA spike protein inside there. But even so, the MPs keep coming back and saying, no, no, there's no problem whatsoever with it. Safe and effective. Everyone says the same phrase, almost as if that's been dictated to them by central government. And so they pushed away the people who've been writing to their MPs. And as I was reading these replies, I thought to myself, hang on a minute, this is a bit strange, because it's almost like they're a representative of the government, instead of what I understood, and maybe I'm a bit thick, I probably am. I thought the Member of Parliament was a member of the society from which he is living, or that's his constituency, that he has a surgery and people come in and they voice their complaints and they voice their worries and they say, we've got this problem and that problem, or we would like to do this, could you help me with that? And that the MP is then supposed to, using the machinations of the government, to assist those people because they voted him in, that he is working for them, the people are paying his wages, and that when he goes up to the House of Commons and into Parliament and does the speaking of lies, parliament, you know, speak lies, that he is then supposed to go up there and say, look, my constituencies, I've had letter after letter after letter saying that we're a bit unhappy with this situation, might be a certain medical procedure, might be 15-minute cities that we don't really want, might be digital IDs, might be digital bank, central bank digital currency, might be the whole policy of net zero, could be a whole range of different things that a number of people are just not happy with the ideas that the government are pushing down the line, and they're saying, no, we don't really want those, thanks very much for offering them, very kind of you, very nice of you to think of us, but actually we decided that we would really like to be free. We don't want to be herded into an area with smart lampposts that are spying on us, with i.e. listening to our conversations through these devices in the house, or looking at us through our phone and mapping out our faces for biometrics. We don't want any of that, thank you very much. We'd like you to switch all that off and abandon any plans whatsoever that you have for that. And yet the MPs, who, as I say, I must have misunderstood this when they were being voted in, seem to be going, well, actually, these aren't views I'm going to take up. I'm not going to say anything about the medical intervention that people have had recently. I'm not going to talk about that and tell the other members of Parliament that my constituencies are worried about it. I'm going to say that they're all fine. It's all great. They love it. They want it, which, of course, is another lie. I don't think people on the whole do want to be enslaved and viewed and monitored and have carbon credits and be graded and have their bank details known everywhere and every bit of their health details shared here and there and everywhere with third parties. I don't think people do want that personally. That's my intuition. I haven't asked everybody, of course, but it seems to me in a free society, why would you want to be watched and viewed and all of that? All just for your convenience, for your security, for your health. And maybe it is. Maybe that's why we have people being shipped in these little boats, so that we have disruptors coming and say, go, whoa, we've got all these people, they've come in and we've put them in hotels and we've put them in all sorts of other little places wherever we can, and you know, they don't really fit into society and we haven't been able to process them and we can't send them back because we're incompetent, and now things are kicking off and there's all sorts of problems with culture and relations with people who don't actually have been born here and part of the thing, and so but really for your security and for your health we better have more cameras watching you, everything that you do, even in the little room when you're taking a you know what, we'll have a camera there just in case, you know, there's a problem, or in case that you conspire in any shape or form against the government.
Yeah, there are already meters on the sewer line.
Heaven forbid we do any of that. So I don't think these MPs are taking all these messages, all these concerns, all these worries, and taking them back up to head office and mentioning it. I think they're just saying, no, no, it's all fine, everybody loves it, yes, roll it out, And I think the main government are just saying to the MPs, don't listen to them. Don't listen to those plebs down there that you talk to. Don't listen to them. Just make sure, try and placate them as much as possible. Lie and tell them we're doing everything we can. Of course, we're looking after everything. And yes, I hear your concern, but it's all safe. Just lie. Tell them any old crap. And in the meantime, we will make sure that we end up with this wonderful dictatorship where we're the bosses and they have nothing to say and nothing to do, and they will be enslaved. That's the way it seems. Even if it's not true, that's the way it appears. It feels like that. It feels like the MPs, members of Parliament, are not actually listening. And I quipped the other day that MPs more like military police. I don't think that the MPs that we have are, as such, members of Parliament, but they seem to be more like military police, ready to enforce the diktats that are coming down the line. It doesn't seem to be that they are for us. It doesn't seem as if the government is actually a benevolent government after all. I used to think that it was. I used to think that they were working for us. How can that be? We voted them in, we pay their wages, and yet somehow, this is how it feels to me, as if they have decided, no, we're going to decide your future, we're going to cram you in, we're going to stop you from going out into the countryside, we're going to prevent you from having that, we're going to give you 5G and start frying your brains, we're going to make sure that we watch you everywhere you go, and that everything that you do is related to how well you behave and what your freedom is and how much we want to curtail it. That's, it seems to me, exactly what the role of government has become. And in fact, they don't seem to be in charge themselves, because there does seem to be the puppet masters above them who sit in Davos, ex-prime ministers, billionaires who think they run the world and want to play God. Seems to me, and I may be wrong because it is only an opinion, but it seems to me that that is the nature of the situation going on. How do you feel about it? Do you feel that that's what's happening? Do you feel that your MP is working in your favour? That when you go is actually helping you? That if you have a problem or you are worried about a certain medical procedure, or if you're not very keen to have a 15-minute city in which you can't go down the road, that your vehicle of freedom, that conveyance that's called a motor car, that if you were to get in it, you're going to be taxed on it, even tyre tax, is that the thing that's coming in next? Or the ULEZ scheme is being expanded to beyond ridiculousness. Do you feel that these people in authority are actually working for you? Or do you feel that actually the oppression of it all is getting bigger and bigger and more noticeable, and you can see the bared teeth and the red piercing eyes? Can you see the hate that's in their faces? Can you see that? Do you feel that? Is that your opinion too? Or do you feel that they are incredibly benevolent and working in your favour and bending over backwards to do everything for you? I'd love to know, because from my point of view, it doesn't feel like that they are on our side at all. I can't see the point of MPs, members of Parliament. I can't see the point now of the government. The two parties, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, without a fag paper between them. One wants it to go this distance and the other one wants it to go even more. Can you feel that? Do you sense that they're actually there working to help us, to look after us? I mean, I'd be fascinated to know if that is the case, because I may be mind-bogglingly wrong somehow. I must be in an alternative universe. And maybe it's just me that is completely wrong, and I may well be, and I'm putting my hands up to say, yes, I could well be wrong. But we have an opportunity. People are saying, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. We'll just roll over. We're all enslaved. It's the end of the world. There's nothing we can do, which is a terrible situation to be in, if you ask me. And yet there will be, at some point, a vote where the people that the government will be dissolved temporarily, and people will be there asked to vote in the next bunch of dictators to come in. And the thing is, we don't have to do it, do we? We don't have to vote for anyone. I'm deregistering. I don't want to be part of the system. Some people have said to me, but Richard, if you're not part of the system, you can't have a say in the side. What difference will my say in the side have? What difference would it make? Much more for me if I say, do you know what? You are irrelevant to me. All these rules, all these diktats, all this horrible stuff that you want to enforce on us, this enslavement that you want to bind us and capture us with. I don't want that. I don't want to be part of that. I don't even want to be on your system. I'm going to be back to being a living man, a free man, freedom. I would rather that more people, if they wanted to, and it's entirely up to them, deregistered and started to form their own party, their own government, and said, well, you go and sit over there and really work it out, rather than being told left, right and centre all over the place. Yeah, maybe we should have our own government. Maybe we don't want central bank digital currency. Maybe we don't even want a fiat currency at all. Maybe we want a currency that's not based on debt, but based on credit. Maybe we want a different system altogether. Maybe the Houses of Parliament and all you people in it are just dinosaurs now, wanting to take more power. Maybe we don't want any of that. I don't know. It's just an opinion. Maybe the people have decided that enough is enough. They don't want to be surveilled by cameras left, right and centre and go into a supermarket and have biometrics in there and have somebody else decide whether you're good enough, a good enough citizen to buy your food this week, whether you want to have a fresh farm food or whether you want to eat insects. I think that people can make their own decision, and we need people who represent us, not the other way round, not representing the government. Just my own personal opinion, mind you. You might have a different opinion. You might like being dictated, told when you are locked up inside your house, being sat in front of monitors, watching everything you do. You might love having them listening into your conversations when you're selecting some music. You might want them looking at you through the phone and recording everything you say to your partners. You might want all of that, and if you do, you're very welcome to want all of that, of course. I, on the other hand, I'm not so keen on that, in actual fact. That's why my house doesn't have one of those ringing telephone, those doorbell things that has a camera in it so that it can be connected to the internet of eyes and spy on you and know when you come home and when you go out. I personally don't want any of that. In fact, I want to get rid of my mobile phone, make sure it doesn't listen to me, and turn my internet off at night and be hardwired rather than having Wi-Fi all the time, which can be intercepted by other people. It's just my own personal opinion, you understand. I just want to be free. I don't want these governments that want to dictate to you and are being manipulated by people in a different country, by billionaires who think that they are gods. That's not what I want. I want freedom. I want a different system of government. I want a system in which the people are part of it and not being pushed aside. I don't know if that's too much to ask in this day and age in a sophisticated, cultivated, urbane society. Maybe it is. But before it's too late, I want to hold on to my freedom, if you don't mind. And maybe, just maybe, some of you do too. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm up in the studio because I wanted to show you something that one of my many contributors, emailers, contacts, viewers, I suppose is the word I'm looking for, has sent me. And so I've come up into my studio for my morning monologue, another piece of diatribe that has been wandering around in my head. And I think one of the most important things that we continually need to address and question, which so much of what's going on in the world is focused on, this one premise, which is, in my opinion, completely false, is the fact that global warming is a catastrophe, in the imminent catastrophe that is about to happen, that we're all going to be warmed up and gobbled up if we don't have a massive response to it. And I think personally, this is, as I say, it's just an opinion, but my life experience, we're supposed to have life experiences now, that's supposed to mean something, isn't it? But my life experience when I go out of the door is not that in the nearly 60 years that I've been on this earth, I know I don't look it, thank you very much, is the fact that actually not anything has happened. All these predictions have been wrong. And surely, this is what I don't really understand, is surely the people who are predicting, oh yes, in 12 years' time we're all going to be swamped in water, we're all going to be dying, and the tide will be coming up from the coast, and the houses will explode, and flames will be all over the place. It's all going to be a nightmare. All of that. You know, surely when they say these things, they must realise that actually they're going to be found out. That as time progresses towards the end of those 12 years, 10 years, whatever it is, when nothing happens, people will go, oh, I thought you said that I've just moved my house up to the top of the hill and I'm looking down and I could have had that lovely palatial building on the seafront. But no. And hang on, isn't the Maldives, weren't they going to disappear about 30 years ago underwater? Are they not still there? Yes, I think they are, actually. I think the lie, the myth that global warming, that it's man-made and that it's going to be a catastrophe. I mean, okay, let's put the caveat in. Yes, I know the planet is gently warming up, but it has been doing that since the last ice age. That is a natural process. We had a volcano, didn't we have an eruption fairly recently, only the other day? I forget what little island it was on. Massive, great billowing clouds all over the place, putting into the atmosphere more CO2 than man has done in the last, whatever it is, 20 years. And these are natural phenomena. We need the CO2. Anyway, the point of this is why I've come up here is because I wanted to show you this. Here we go. This is from a website that somebody sent me called lifesitenews.com. I don't know how true any of this is. It's just an opinion, of course. But they're reporting that Greta Thunberg deletes a 2018 tweet warning that humans will go extinct if the climate isn't fixed by, look, 2023. Hello? Maybe I'm just broadcasting in the last building standing. Maybe there's actually nobody out there, that I'm all on my own here. I'll go out the door and find that the great deluge of water will come gaping through and cast me away in some horrible and horrific fashion. Maybe that's the case, although actually I am in the real world. And unfortunately, life is just going on as normal. Nothing as dramatic as that has actually changed. We're not there climbing in the lifeboats and the rubber dinghies, although, of course, some people are getting in rubber dinghies from France and coming over to the UK only to get free health care and doctors and a nice bit of plush accommodation, and all worryingly of the same sex. So I don't know whether it's a secret cult or something. Maybe it is. Maybe they're just of a certain sexual persuasion and they like being banged up in a hotel. I don't mean literally banged up. But anyway, I'll leave you to interpret that how you like. The main point was, Greta, here she is. This is a younger version of her now. She's a little bit older and perhaps wiser. And it says here that climate activist Greta Thunberg has clandestinely, I don't know if that's actually what, that's an adjective, isn't it, deleted a tweet from 2018, claimed that mankind would go extinct unless the humans stop using fossil fuels. Well, we're still using those fossil fuels, and here is the tweet. Here it is. Apparently, this is it. A top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. How dare you? That's apparently what is going on, and then there's a few little comments and stuff. And then on the same website, here we go, look at this. Now, I don't know when this came out. It doesn't have a date, which is irritating. Maybe it does. Here we go. This is from Tuesday, the 31st of January this year. So this is another report on a similar thing. You can see it says opinion at the top, just so you know. I mean, it's somebody's opinion. It's an opinion that I share, I'd like to point out. Climate scientists baffled as to why Antarctica has not warmed in 70 years, despite the rising CO2 levels. And look, here we have a picture. Not that that proves anything, because I don't know where it comes from. I think it says that there it comes from Shuttlecock or some such place. It's in the magazine. But it goes on to say that scientists are scrambling to explain, I don't think they are, I think they're keeping very quiet about it, to be honest with you, why the continent of the Antarctic has shown net zero warming, yes, for the last 7 decades, and almost certainly much longer. The lack of warming over a significant portion of the Earth undermines the unproven hypothesis that the carbon dioxide humans add to the atmosphere is the main determinant of global warming. So there you go. That's not proof, of course, it's just an opinion, but it does seem that most people, I would think, and I would argue, would be able to say, actually, do you know what, walking out from wherever you are, in whatever different parts of the world, where is it? We've been warned time and time and time and time and time and time again. So many people actually on this desk here. I think I seem to have some sort of I don't know if this will work. I have no idea because I can't monitor it, but time and time again. Did you get that? I've no idea. I can't hear it. It's a little knob on my desk here in the studio. We've been warned time and time again that this global warming is a thing. But the main part of this is it's fine if that was it. It's just saying, oh, make sure you've got a rubber dinghy in the cupboard and a couple of paddles and a tin of soup. For a tin of pea green soup, of course, if you happen to be out there like the owl and the pussycat, stuck at sea when the ice melts and all the rest of it. And of course, make sure you've got a fire extinguisher because you'll need one of those when everything catches fire. Now, last year in the UK, we had one day where temperatures went up to 40 degrees centigrade. Oh my God! And that was pounced on as if that was proof positive that the globe is warming up to a degree it's never been seen before, and everything was going to set fire at 40 degrees, 40 degrees centigrade. Really? Hang on a minute. 100 degrees centigrade is only boiling point. It's only boiling point where water boils. 100 degrees. 40, it's even half that. Yeah, it's warm for water. Nice and warm. You go for a nice swim in that. Be lovely. Thanks very much. Maybe a bit too hot. Maybe not. You know, it depends if you're a frog slowly boiling up. But the point being that people go on holiday to places warmer than that to lie on the beach and sizzle, don't they? They do that. They go and yet those places are not on fire, naturally. You know, how many places around the world that have that sort of temperature day after day after day are actually on flames all the time, on fire, burning up? No, not very many, in fact. Okay, so you've got places like Australia where the bush does catch fire, although a lot of those are set by troublemakers lighting stuff and being irresponsible, but they do happen, they do occur in nature. That's part of nature, that's part of resetting, if you like. We have to be careful with that word, don't you? In case you don't add the great word in front of it, because that will suddenly mean, oh yes. But they do that. These bush fires are natural and get rid of all sorts of stuff, and then there's new growth, and that happens. Obviously, if you've built a house nearby the areas that are most likely to set fire, then you have to do something about it. You have to sort of create a barrier, don't you? A sort of fire barrier around your property so it doesn't happen. And I used to know a bloke in Australia who told me that they have a safe box, some sort of box that should a fire happen in the fire season, they can whack. They've got things like their passports and various other bits and pieces of proof who they are, extra money and things like that in this special box that you grab, put in the car, and you drive far away. They also have these viewing posts that this chap that I used to know used to climb up and would watch. You know, you'd spend a few hours there. People used to do it in the hot season and watching in case there was any bushfires and things like that. People are clever. People are clever. So even if this, you know, the world is slightly warming up and over the next 100 years it's going to go up by 1 degree, oh my God, or even 2 degrees, blimey. Let's hope it doesn't go up by the 3 degrees, because otherwise they'll be coming out of their graves singing all sorts of old 1940s songs. But if it's going to go up by 1 degree or 2 degrees over the next 100 years, we are clever people. We can cope with it. We don't need all this knee-jerk rubbish about heading to net zero and having to plant windmills all over the place for times when there is no wind, or to have solar panels distributed all over the ground in which would be good farming land. And we need to get the farmers out there. The CO2, which of course is the gas of life, is brilliant for farmers. It means that there are more crops. We need those crops. We need them now. We don't need the regressive policies that the governments across the world are evilly putting out to try and say, oh yes, you can't have fertilizer, we mustn't have all these crops anymore, we mustn't have animals because they fart, oh my God, they fart right up into the atmosphere, and that, you know, animals farting are there to cause chaos and mayhem. I mean, it is totally and utterly ridiculous. And yet the people of this earth. I mean, wake up, people, for goodness sake. I mean, it's like, goodness sake, this is not happening. So one of the things that I think we really need to sort of address, because so many of these stupid policies that are being pushed from a tyrannical government and governments around the world, from places like the WEF and the WHO, who are sort of, well, they do seem to be evil think tanks, don't they? I mean, I'm just saying they seem to be, they may not be, these ex-leaders and these billionaires all coming together to sort of play God and tell us how to run things. Really? Really? I mean, they've never done a proper day's work in their lives, have they? They've no idea what it's like to bring up kids themselves. They've got nannies and other people to do it. They don't seem to have any personal bones in their body. Real, I mean, if they want to turn into some technocratic robot and walk around this earth doing their thing on their little private islands and sending their little jets all over the place, it's entirely up to them. I have no problem with that. Do that in your own time, in your own space, but leave the rest of us who have got a life, thank you very much, who like to walk out into the countryside, love to see cows and pigs and sheep and all of that, love to eat them as well, thank you, when they're, I would like to see the industries a little less industrial and less of the chemicals put into animals and things. I'd like to see animal welfare obviously improve. I'm sure most people would like that. Probably the farmers would like to see that themselves. And I would like to see farmers not having to rely on subsidies, that they could go back to small farming and things. I know people would disagree with me on that, but that's fine. We can have a debate about all of that. That's fine. But where I don't think we need to do is to unnecessarily burden farmers and people and technology with these pointless targets to get to something like net zero, where you're trying to get rid of the very gas that is the gas of life that produces flowers growing and plants growing and plants that the animals need, that we then can get the nutrients from those plants out of the soil, as well as the animals that we eat. Because we are, on the whole, we are carnivores. We don't need to. We've got to burst the myth, this stupid myth that the elites are desperately trying to convince us, because they want us to go into this bug-eating scenario and these stupid little ghettos of 15-minute cities and all of this. We need to take back the responsibility, show them that we're not going to have any of this nonsense, that this policy is rubbish. It's just not worth pursuing. It is a load of old nonsense. It's a false ideology, and it's not going to be of any benefit to the human race. But if they want to do it, that's fine. For one thing, wouldn't it be great if they were role models of this? If they wanted to live in 15-minute cities, why don't they show us how it's done? Let them all live in a 15-minute city. If they want to push this on us, then why don't they have a digital ID and we look in and see exactly what they're doing and make out and look at their carbon credits? If they want to stop us from travelling about and having cars and flying and all that, why don't they, as role models, instead of poncing about flying all over the place, get rid of their private jets and stay in these 15-minute cities and get rid of their cars and not travel anywhere at all? If they actually if they actually did what they preach, we would have a lot more respect for them. But they don't. They purposely flout everything that they actually believe in, or say they believe in, and expect us to do the same. Well, I think until and unless they do it first, we shouldn't. So when Greta, clearly now exposing herself as a bit of a fraud there by saying, oh, well, I believe that in 2018 and I'm going to delete this tweet now because actually it makes me look a fool. Well, it does make you look a fool, love. I'm sorry to say, it does make you look a fool. And I can understand, because she was younger then and we all make mistakes, and so I'm happy to reach out with an olive branch if she was to turn around and say, do you know what? I know I've made a lot of money out of this. I know, there's a lot of money to be made out of climate change alarmism, and I'm alarming everybody. I know I've done that, but to be honest with you, I can start to now see the error of my ways, and if people would be able to sort of take me back on board and say, look, I'm still Joan of Arc, but I will do the opposite and say, actually, I was wrong. and there's no such thing as climate change. I realised that that was a complete and utter cock-up. I was influenced by all the wrong people. I don't agree with any of it. Yes, I want to save the planet in terms of pollution and make life a little bit easier for everybody and have a much more cohesive and wholesome and spiritual life. Wouldn't that be lovely? And that we get rid of the litter and the pain and the nastiness. That would be great. For one thing, we could get rid of all those people at Davos who've actually baffled my brains. That would be a good starting point. Now, if she was to do that, I would be full on board with it. It would be lovely. You know, we'd all recognise and say, you know, everybody makes a mistake. Everybody does something wrong, and once they say, you know, I've made a mistake, we should all be able to say, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. You're human, like the rest of us. Join us and be a true member of real society. That, I think everybody would have no problem with that. But to sort of dig your heels in and to hide under the carpet and say, well, I didn't do anything, I never put that tweet out, would be stupid, because we can see it. And the truth, you know, the truth will come out. You don't have to keep looking behind you. You don't have to keep covering your back when you're dealing with the truth. The truth is the truth. It's open. It's honest. It's there. You can see it. You don't have to hide it and be in fear. You just deal with it. Anyway, there we go. That's my monologue today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will no doubt be back downstairs on the little chair, coming out and pontificating about life, the universe, and everything. And of course, join me again when I've got some more of my wonderful interviews, which I do have lined up for the next 2 weeks. So there's all of that. And thank you for all your emails and messages and everything else. I'm sorry if I can't always get to answer the emails. I've got something like